Welcome, listeners. We are so excited to have you here at another episode of Beyond the Mirror, where we take a deep dive into beauty, longevity, and wellness. And I'm here today with Jill Moellering. She is a functional nutritionist. We are so excited to have you here. Welcome, Jill. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things that have to do with food, our sometimes obsession with food, sometimes our addiction to food, and what are some of the tools and tips that we can put into place, and how you are actually helping your clients in a whole new, different type of way that really gives them the freedom to choose and make different decisions so they don't feel so tied to a diet or having to live a life obsessed by food. And so, welcome. We are excited to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey on how you ended up on this path?
Yeah. I went through a very stressful period of time in my life. And after that, I had a lot of health issues. We know that stress causes a lot of disease and imbalances in the body. Well, at that time, I didn't know. So I started seeing an AK chiropractic, and there was always something wrong with me. It was, parasites and yeast and mold and Epstein-Barr. And it just, every time I was out, every month, it was like $300 of supplements. And I started to do my own research and realized he wasn't addressing some of the foundational pieces like diet and lifestyle, right? Mm-hmm. So I became an NTP to help myself. And along that lines, I learned a lot about food, like how it affects our body. And so I started to do detoxes with people and run through people through these 30-day detoxes where we would eliminate all processed foods and sugars and lower our carbs, and you would feel phenomenal. And then afterwards, you'd go right back to normal. At least I did, and a lot of the people I worked with did. And for me, it started to become a habit where I was doing really good, and then I was going all out, and I was binging.
Cycling.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where it's like an everyday thing, where it was just like, every day I waked up, I wanted to do better. I tried all kinds of different diets and supplements and just everything I could think of, but I couldn't do good. I couldn't stop eating the junk.
Yeah. And I think that happens to a lot of us, where we get stuck in that like addictive cycle of what those carbs give us and how it kind of plays out, where almost the chemistry takes over your body and you feel like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get out of this hole? Mm-hmm. And so it kind of sounds like where you were. What are some of the things that you realized how food played such a huge role in that?
Well, I started to think I had a food addiction, and I did carnivore for a period of time, and I didn't feel well on it after, a few weeks, and I just felt weak, and I just wasn't getting enough, food, and I was still obsessing about food. I was literally still obsessing about steak and butter and bacon. Wow. And so it wasn't the food, it was my relationship with food, and it was the fact that I thought I was good and bad, and that I thought food was good and bad, and that I was restricting to a point that my brain was obsessing over the food. Mm-hmm. And so I know not everyone has that type of personality where, restriction really kind of creates that obsession and desire, but a lot of people do. And so that's what was kind of happening. I had to start I had to unpack that and work through that.
So interestingly, like I've fought weight my entire life, and I've always been the one that was really good. Give me the plan. I'm going to follow the plan to a T. Mm-hmm. I'm going to not have the obsession, but then it's just so many of them are incredibly hard to maintain, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then you do punish especially as women, we like mentally punish ourselves, like for eating whatever, like the ice cream I ate this week, which I seldom eat. Like, why am I punishing myself for this thing? And so there is so much of diet, weight, especially for women, that is in your head. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like that's kind of what you're addressing.
You do address the mental component, the
that's
mindset.
A huge piece.
Tell us about that.
Well, yeah. So there's a combination of things. Part of it, first of all, is the self-love and learning the self-love and self-care and coming at it from a place of that instead of punishment. So unless you're someone like David Goggins, most people don't operate well for a long period of time being punished on a diet or a meal plan, and we tend to rebel. So learning the self-love, the self-care, learning how we can allow ourselves to have the food, but paying attention to how that food then makes us feel, but not judging it. So before it would be like, oh gosh, this food's so bad. I'm bad. I can't believe I did this again. I know this food makes me feel this way, and here I go again. That mind chat. Instead, it's more of a neutral, like, this means nothing about who I am. Yes, I'm getting ready to probably experience some of these feelings, and that's okay. I really did enjoy that ice cream with my family, and I got to be present and enjoy my life.
Because there's another aspect of it too, where you don't indulge at all, and then you feel isolated from your family, which is also not ideal either.
Oh yeah, like carnivore is a tough one to feel like a normal part of the universe.
Yeah, and food is so social. Like, the whole part of eating is about social gathering. When you're in a cafeteria, it's everybody in a certain area. There's so many social cues associated with the way that we eat. And so missing out on that, I think, is also as detrimental. So you swing from one pendulum to the other, and it's like,
So did you find going to nutrition school actually address that, or is that something that you just kind of learned on your own to do?
No, that actually is what kind of fueled that. The term orthorexia, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's like that obsession of clean eating where it kind of takes over your life. And, I became obsessed with making sure that I was only eating, beyond organic, farm pasture rate, like just to the T, like, and then like trying to start my own farm and garden. It's like, it was too much. So the orthorexia.
She's talking about me.
So
sounds familiar.
So that really is what created more of the eating disorder in me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, what has been some of the key tools to overcome what you've been through?
A big piece of it is awareness. First of all, understanding the thoughts that are going on in our head and the relationship that we have with ourselves and with food, and then changing those thoughts to something that serves you better, understanding how those thoughts don't serve you, how it creates more of a stress response. I mean, if you think about it, if I don't like the way my body looks and I'm trying to change it and I'm criticizing it all the time about these lumps and these bumps and all that stuff, right? I don't like myself, and that's a very stressful place to be. And so, learning to love ourselves, learning to take care of ourselves in a way that we enjoy, like I said, not punishment, but it's also the basics. There is some food education that needs to happen. I do practice intuitive eating, but there is some education that goes beyond that. You don't just eat whatever the heck you want.
Feel like.
Yes. You need to understand how food impacts you. So it is some of the educational piece, and then it's like the lifestyle stuff, like prioritizing sleep, and then some of it is, mindset stuff for people with that have emotional eating habits, where it's like, understanding that what people pleasing does and understanding how being a perfectionist affects you. And once you have that awareness, and then you start learning the tools to address that.
I think I've kind of naturally gone, like, the more I've definitely gone in the spiral of the more I learn about food, the more food freaks me out, and like dining out and things like that. But then there's also somehow, like, I really went deep into that, and now somehow on my own, I don't know how, I've like gone, okay, you just have to be okay with, you're going to eat in a restaurant, it's not going to be perfect. Everything that you're going to eat is not going to be perfect for you, and your body's going to handle it. It's going to be okay. But then what you don't want to do is go in the opposite direction, where you're like, oh, everything's okay, everything's on the table, So when you're working with someone, are you helping them create a dietary plan? Or are you helping them with their mind? Or are you helping with both?
I'm helping with the mindset piece, but we're also learning the education piece, and then we're learning how to make upgrades. So I don't have to completely eliminate sugar or maybe processed foods, but I'm not going to eat them all the time. So maybe I want to enjoy a few chips on the side of my lunch, but it's not like something I'm going to do. And I'm also balancing that with plenty of protein and some healthy fats. So it's like, where can I make an upgrade. Like
a healthy swap.
yeah. So like for me, like I love Chick-fil-A. Okay. That's like my only restaurant I will eat out at, like fast food. And there was a period of time where I was like, you can't have that. And now I just make healthier upgrades. Like maybe I just want the chicken, or maybe I want half the bun, or maybe I don't want the bun at all and I just want some of the sauce. So it's like, what's the best thing I can do today that will support my health and my well-being, but also honor my desires? And what changes am I okay making today? And, over time you start making, new changes and more changes, and you don't just take it all on at once.
Yeah. I've known you, since I've known you, you've been thin. Have you ever had a weight issue?
So I used to weigh more than this. My issue was I actually lost a good amount of weight to where people were like, you okay? This and that. And in my mind, I still wasn't. I still didn't like my body. And so as I've gained more weight, that, learning how to still love my body and be okay with my body and appreciate more what my body can do versus what it looks like.
It's funny you say that. So like we're in the business of beauty, right? And I see a lot of naked women bodies because we do things like Brazilian bikini lasering, let's say. And the one thing that I learned, after doing this for 23 years is every woman has something they don't like about themselves. Yeah. Like the most beautiful, perfect model, like you're seeing and all the things, is at home obsessing about X or Y on their own body. And so for me, that like gave me a little freedom to say, nobody feels perfect. Actually, nobody, I think some men feel perfect, but women generally have a hard time letting go of the imperfections as opposed to, like, I mean, when we look back on voluptuous women in 60 years ago, they were so much more curvy and voluptuous and and they were beautiful. Like they were absolutely beautiful. But I think the world of Instagram and filters and all that is.
Well, it did. I mean, it really did start in the mid 1800s. Like if you think back with the corset, right? I mean, media, they also, so society won, and it was kind of almost a moral thing. But before that, it was like, the Greek term for fat actually is like prosperity and fertility. Is what it is derived from. So I do think that women's bodies having more curves is more of a desirable trait. But society and media and diet culture really play that against us. Like, this is the ideal body shape you should have. And if you buy this product, you can get that result in 30 days. Oh, yeah. And if you don't, it's your problem. Like you failed.
You did something wrong. You're the anomaly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So is there like interestingly, my 18-year-old son, he's going to kill me for saying this. He was recently saying to me that the one thing that he finds sad in girls his age, women his age, is how obsessed at a very young age girls are. And, I'm not going to say I didn't worry about those things when I was younger. I absolutely have. Since the day I started my first period, I have fought my weight. So like, I understand. But then I also look back at those pictures of me when I was, quote, fat in high school and like, oh, I would kill to look like that now. Like that was a beautiful body. Like, why was I so hard on myself? But he was saying, and I think it's it's actually scientifically proven that the age of social media and TikTok and Snaps and Instagram he's like, they're so miserable. So do you you see these young girls? Are they some of your people, or do you worry about what's going to happen with them?
Sadly, I do typically start working with people in their 30s and 40s.
Sure.
I wish, I could work. Yeah. A quick story, and then I'll get back to the social media is, when I was going through the detoxes, I was very strict with my daughter at a young age. And
it comes from us as parents.
It does come from us as parents, and we see our parents on a diet, and we see our parents talking about how fat they are and how they don't look good. And so we start taking that on. So media, parents, role models, everything. I started to watch her develop an eating disorder. So we would go to birthday parties, and I'd say, like, what was your favorite thing? And she's like, the cake. Like, that's all she cared about was the sweets. And like, that's honestly, I was like, okay. And that's, as I was healing, I got to help her, and I've seen that level out. So, back to the social media, one of the things I do recommend is to unfollow certain accounts that are fake. They're the ones that you watch, and they don't make you feel good because they're taking pictures with the right lighting at the certain angle. They're saying, if you only do this one move for 30 days, you can get these abs, and it's like, it's fake. And it makes you feel not enough. And so I unfollow those accounts. And there's a lot of real accounts out there now. I think there's a big movement in the body positivity and real bodies out there. And I think you need to follow more accounts like that, that, normalize having some cellulite, normalize having this jiggle in your butt, normalize having a belly when you sit down. So normalizing some jiggle under the arms is normal.
And I think that's where, like, having the social media and everything so instant gratification, where we've lost being authentic. And so, I mean, and I see it a lot too with my clients, with even some family members, where they don't even really know who they are. They don't even know what they like. And I think, like, I feel so sad by that. And that is some of the driver that makes us think, well, oh, okay, my happiness lives outside of me. I have to achieve this body and then I will be happy. And I see that a lot, and it's just heartbreaking. And so I love what you're doing and how you're helping them dial that back, because it is from within.
It is.
It all comes from within. And if you get this under control, it doesn't matter what this looks like. It's beauty, and we all are different.
But then there's also that less stress, right?
Yes.
And I actually work out and do more things now and eat healthier because I've changed the mindset and my relationship with myself and exercise and healthy eating.
Yeah. And you do it because you like it and you enjoy it.
Exactly.
Versus I have to do it because I need to stay fit.
Yes.
There's a total difference between the two, right?
No, I've lived that. I mean, I have absolutely, like, years ago, I've said this story several times on the podcast, but at one point I was eating 1,200 calories a day. I was exercising profusely 5 days a week, and I was gaining weight. And for me, it turns out I was insulin resistant, like very, very insulin resistant. And no matter what practices I could have made at that time, I was not going to overcome this giant flaw with my body. But I was obsessed. I was way more obsessed back then. And don't get me wrong, I'm more obsessed with clean eating now. Back then I was more obsessed with body image and trying to fix what I didn't like about myself. But now I do give myself grace in ways that I didn't. But I got myself healthy using someone like Dena helping me get through the insulin resistance, which can make life much easier for someone that's struggling in that way. But I still, very conscientious eating is what the word I always like to use. Like, let's be very thoughtful in your situation, without over thoughtful, right? About what we're choosing to put in. And for me, like, that's what's in my fridge. Like, what we do the regenerative. I am doing the obsessive gardening. I am doing those things, but I enjoy them also. And I wouldn't say it's like, oh my gosh, if I have to eat lettuce from the grocery store, I'm going to die. It's nothing like that. It's just more like, I do like to have some modicum of control about what is in our house and what we're eating. But then when I go out in the world, I'll eat the Chick-fil-A sandwich like you're talking about. How do you feel about them changing their chicken? Have you heard this?
I thought I heard something a while back, but
so they just
antibiotics.
They went from antibiotics never to antibiotics sometimes. like
Really?
in the last few weeks, and it was all supply problem. They just could not
they could not
get
supply it.
a supply of antibiotic-free chicken.
We have a client that we had asked that. She works at Chick-fil-A, and she's like, "No, we haven't changed our chicken."
There was
And I
like
was
a
like,
national.
yeah.
There was
I
a
don't know.
national announcement in the last.
Interesting.
It wasn't like a local thing. It
Yeah.
was like
Gotcha. Oh, so it's like all the Chick-fil-A.
all the Chick-fil-A's.
Interesting.
Well, this is my opinion on it, is if I have Chick-fil-A every other week, there's a lot worse things that can harm my body than worrying about some antibiotics that was fed to a chicken. And
breathing air.
breathing air,
Yeah.
sleep,
Uh-huh.
what I'm thinking, how I'm moving my body, just the day-to-day things that I'm doing will have much more of an impact on my health than that chicken breast.
Tiny little chicken breast. Yeah.
Mhm.
Tell me about one of the most favorite clients that you've worked with, and their testimonial story.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
Yeah, I know there's like bits and pieces of favorite ones.
Yeah.
One that I use often is a lady that came to me a while back that was struggling with making healthy eating choices. In fact, she had gone through some of my detox programs with me. Mm-hmm. So she was very much familiar with healthy eating, but just could not make the decision to eat healthy. So she struggled with a lot of health issues. She was seeing a doctor, and started working with her. She had so much joint pain that she couldn't move. The first thing, I didn't address exercise, even though she wanted to lose weight. We didn't do that. So as I started changing. We started making healthy upgrades because she was like, I'm not going to give up my blueberry muffin in the morning from Costco. I don't know. I think it was like a Costco one or something. Then that's fine. Like, we're not going to do that. Like, sometimes it's like, what's the next right step for you might be different than you. And so it was reducing, actually, it was the nightshades, right? So are you willing to do an experiment and reduce some nightshades? Okay, bam, now your inflammation's down. Now your pain's down. Okay, now let's work on your sleep routine so that you have some more energy. So through that process, she went from not wanting to give up her blueberry muffin, not exercising at all, being extremely stressful people pleaser, and her labs all went down with her doctor. Her oncologist was like, okay, this is great. She started walking 3 miles a day, like I think it was 5 days a week. So 3 miles a day, 5 days a week. Started working out with a personal trainer and started her morning with eggs and vegetables and enjoyed it, literally. Like, that was what she enjoyed doing.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
It was just making those small changes and the mindset.
And how long of a time period did it take her?
I think we worked together for about a little bit longer. So I think it was around like 16 weeks.
Okay. That's awesome.
So when you're working with someone like that, and then we've made all the adaptations and such, and then you kind of set them free, do they check in with you? Like, how do you?
I do check in with them sometimes. I'll message them.
Because it seems like you should.
Because I do have a very...
It's so easy to get off track again.
Yeah, I do have a very close relationship with my clients. They have free access to text me because there's a lot of mindset stuff that happens. Hey, I binged today. This is what I was thinking. Let's address that and not wait another week. So I do check in with them, and they have the tools just like I do. And so sometimes they will, not be exercising as much, but the way that they think about it and the way that they just get right back into it is not like, again, like, oh God, I'm not exercising enough. I'm not doing this. It's just, I've not been really exercising a lot, but I've got a lot of stress going on. It's not, I'm doing these other things. What other things can you be doing to help
balance it out?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
What's your favorite person that you're wanting to attract to? Like, who do you look for to help? Who do you feel like you have the greatest ability to help? Like personality style or issue that they might be having?
Yeah. I think it's those that are really willing to work on the internal stuff that goes on. I don't really have a quick fix for you. 16 weeks is actually pretty quick.
That is pretty quick.
But it continues on from there. There still is the mindset, and there still is combating, diet culture and society. The perfect person is that person that has struggled with the on and off, again, eating, the overeating, the yo-yoer, the binge eating, the thinking that, they can't do it, the guilt and the shame that comes with that, and the self-confidence. I love watching somebody transform their way that they view themselves.
Even back, like, when you were doing everything right, there's still that component where you're like, well, I'm doing everything right. Like, you finally get so frustrated, you almost like want to throw your hands in the air and be like, why try?
Oh no, I did that. She talks about the yo-yo. I mean,
Oh, me too.
My little 5'5" frame was 228 pounds at one point. And I'm little. I'm not really designed to be at that weight. I mean, there are people that can carry that weight and be okay, but I was not that body. And I felt, and you feel terrible in that situation too. You're kicking yourself mentally and emotionally, but you're also like physically feel terrible.
Yeah.
And so, it is.
That's a hard one, because you physically feel terrible and you feel like I have to eat this way to feel better. And so you keep getting stuck in that yo-yo cycle.
I did the give up thing, like, screw this.
Yeah,
like,
this is too
I might
hard.
as well just eat what I want.
I
might as well not exercise.
Why do I care?
Lay in the bed.
Why am I putting so much energy into it? And that's really hard to dig yourself out of. And, if somebody can catch themselves before they get to that point, it's so much easier to recover after that. But it is true with women and in the world that we're living in, that diet plays a part, but mental plays how we're approaching it plays a huge part in how we're addressing our positive and negative body image in our own minds. Because our girlfriends aren't telling us that. I've never had girlfriends, even at that moment, go, holy cow, what is wrong with you? Like, nobody says that. They might be like worried about me or whatever, but they're not like you did have friends say, okay, you're a little too.
So one of the things I realized, there's like this body dysmorphia that we see our bodies in a way that no one else sees it. And so it's like, I mean, really, in 1 minute, I could be like, oh, yeah, you're looking okay. And then I'd see a little aspect of me, and I'd be like, you are so fat. I cannot believe you don't have it. Like, no, seriously. And so it's like, I was like, how can one be true in 1 minute and one be true in another? And that's when I started to look at, like, something's not right. I don't think I have a clear understanding of what my body actually looks like.
We see that in cosmetic.
Yes.
And I call it body dysmorphia of the face. Where like you see it in movie stars where they've just ruined themselves because they're chasing some look or image that they're not going to attain. And they're not seeing what they actually look like, in the mirror, and they just keep chasing it and chasing it. And we have to, like, here we'll be like, stop. Just no. Just like, no more filler, no more this. Your skin's over processed. I had a lady at one point, I'm like, no more lasers. Like, stop. Just, you have to stop. But no, trust me, we're going to get you there. You're not going to like the process necessarily, but it's the same thing. So we can do that to our face or our body or our children. Yeah, you were hitting on that. I somehow raised an incredibly body confident woman. My daughter is insane. I always said if we could all have a little piece of her body confidence, the world would be a much better place, because she just really just leans into who she is and accepts who she is. And it is really beautiful if you can help someone get to that. She's never going to be a little skinny, tiny little person. And she's fine with that, and she's happy with herself and confident.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I'm changing the way that I relate to my body so that my daughter sees that okay, that's a normal woman's body, and she cares more about how her body functions than what it looks like.
I growing up, my sister had a little bit of a weight issue, so my mom changed everything about the way that we ate, and everything was like not processed. She made everything whole from scratch, and then my parents were divorced, so when we go to my dad's house, my dad used to use sugar as a tool to make us do what he wanted us to do. To be like, if you're really good, I'll buy you a candy bar.
It's like the dog. Like, you're like, here you go.
Yeah, it was so like reward system, and so it's interesting because like now I'm dealing with it with my daughter. She's like, how do I stop the reward system with food and coffee and this kind of stuff? And I'm like, oh, that's a great question. Here's how to do it.
Yeah.
And so we're working through that, and we're like on day 7 of no coffee.
Oh,
and it's a challenge for someone who at 3 years old, we're like, here, have some Starbucks. Here, have some Starbucks. And we just did that. And I'm like, I could see how it kind of repeated in a different way. But having the tools to work through that is huge. And I'm so grateful that there's people like you that help others get over that mindset and learn to actually love themselves, because there is so much freedom in that.
So on that note, I want to ask if there's some specific things that you recommend people do if they're unable to see you, if they're not nearby here where they can, work with you one-on-one or whatever. What do you recommend women in that cycle? Where do you recommend that they start?
Well, one, my work's all virtual.
Yeah.
I do have like a free Facebook group for that, and then I have a DIY program, and then the working with me option. But to do it on your own, I again would just say unfollow those accounts, follow some different accounts. Follow me, and my message. You want to like be able to. I mean, think about how many years we've been thinking this way. It takes some outside effort to change that. So I'd say that, and then just becoming really aware of your thoughts, and journaling, processing some of that stuff.
And then when you're looking at dietary changes, it sounds like your big recommendation is kind of upgrade your choices.
Yes, when you know a little bit about nutrition and protein and fat and carbs, balancing that for blood sugar and stuff like that, and just processed foods, different things like that, then start to make upgrades. What is one thing I can upgrade in this meal that will help me towards that, the nutrition part, but that also honors my desires, where I feel good about what I'm eating. Like I feel like everything I eat is almost a treat, because I'm like, there's some element of this that I do love.
And speaking of the metabolic issue, because about 96% of Americans have metabolic issues, it's rampant. And so I don't know about you, but I encounter I go to the gym, I do everything right, but I'm still not losing weight. And part of that is the stress level is really huge. And so I love what you're saying is you're meeting them where they're at, right? If they're the person that doesn't want to get rid of their blueberry muffin in the morning, you're meeting them where they're at. Okay, let's find another area to swap, right?
Yeah, and I think one important thing with understanding how to change this is understanding how what we're doing is going to perpetuate the problem. So when we are calorie deficient, that's one, a stress on the body, so that's going to cause weight gain, but it also slows down your metabolism over a period of time, especially the yo-yo dieting. So it becomes near impossible to lose weight, and then when you do go off the diet, everything you eat, right, especially like the over exercising slows down your metabolism, because you're sending the body a message that it needs to slow down the energy to conserve its energy, because you're not feeding it enough and you're demanding like a lot of work from it.
And your cortisol level is rising. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're seeing results with your clients, even though they have metabolic issues. Good. Awesome. I love that.
Perfect.
I love that.
So how can people find you? Like you just mentioned, you have an online forum and all that. What are the best ways for people to join you on this like journey that you can help them through these issues that we honestly, most of us have? Most of us.
To some degree. I mean, we live in diet culture in this society where, unattainable, unrealistic bodies are being shoved in our face all the time. So having a different message and having a place. I created the Facebook group. It's the Freedom and Flourish group. And that's where, I wanted a safe space where women could come together and just get real about this is what's going on. So I have that. And then on, Instagram, I'm a little less active on there. It's Whole Bean Wellness, and my website is Whole Bean Wellness.
Wonderful.
Is there anything that we missed that maybe you think is an important issue that we should discuss?
I think we touched on a lot of good topics today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we totally appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
This
it's
is
great.
Yeah.
Love
such
talking to you guys.
important information for people to
is.
hear,
Mm-hmm.
that there is maybe some solutions out there to the cycle.
Yeah.
there's
You're not broken. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
You just need some new tools
Yeah.
and a new mindset.
So we hope that you guys like and share and comment on this. Maybe give us a review. We could really appreciate, like, hey, I love this information. I love this guest or whatever. It really helps us out a lot if you can. But next time we'll have something other juicy, delicious topic that we're talking about, and we hope you listen in. So thanks for listening to us, and we will see you the next time. We want to make a quick but important disclosure. The information and advice shared in this podcast are intended to provide general knowledge and understanding about wellness and health-related subjects. They are not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new health